We are doing okay. Thank you.
Okay, so guys, we are 2 minutes in, and welcome to Meshery Build and Release call. This call takes place every other week. So, and here we discuss everything related to integration tests, unit tests, your GitHub workflows, and so on and so forth. So, without wasting any time, let's start with the first item, which is Serene's item. I guess Serene's here. Yep, Serene is here. So, Serene, would you like to share your screen?
Yes, 1 second. Okay. Okay, so this is a PR that I started in order to consolidate the Helm chart sets and get rid of the charts that are duplicated under both Meshery operator and Meshery. So there's an issue that I've run into here is that when deploying the Meshery chart, it deploys with it Meshery operator as a dependency, but when we do it that way, Meshery operator also will have the release name as Meshery. And so when we try to uninstall it later on, only uninstall Meshery operator, it's not possible because it's looking at, for the Meshery operator as a release name on its own. So one suggestion by Ashish was to separate Meshery and Meshery operator as two completely different charts without any of them being a dependency for the other, and then making it so that Meshery chart will be first installed and then the Meshery operator will be installed on its own.
Yeah, so I guess the only place we'll have to make any change is on Meshery CTL, where Meshery CTL system start, where we actually install only the Meshery Helm chart. There will have to install Meshery as well as Meshery operator. After Meshery will be installing Meshery operator, and in server when we perform the operation, we still have Meshery as a release name. Even for installing the operator, we just override some flags and all. So there would be basically different Helm charts plus completely different release names, Meshery and Meshery operator. So I think, yeah, I had a conversation with Lee, and I think this seems like the most appropriate thing to do right now, because like no matter how, because at the end of the day, they have less in common than we think. I mean, the only place where like in the Meshery, anything that is in the Meshery operator Helm chart won't be there in the Meshery Helm chart, right?
Yes.
And vice versa. Yeah, so
yes, so the way that I'm imagining that would happen would be that Meshery operator would have mesh sync and the broker on its own, and Meshery will have everything else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yep. So once you do that change, and we can go ahead and merge this PR. So that would be kind of a breaking change, because now after that change will be basically those two charts would go completely orthogonal with no dependencies. So when you are done with that change, make sure to ping any of us, and when we merge it on an urgent basis, we'll create two issues or maybe two PRs in both Meshery server and Meshery CTL, so nothing breaks. And yeah, so I think that can be a final word on this one. We just completely separate them out. So after separating them out, you in order to test them. Okay, so in order to test them, you won't be using Meshery CTL or Meshery server, because we won't have logic in there by that time. So for testing, what you can do is that you can install Meshery and then install Meshery operator as a Helm chart, and then try to uninstall Meshery operator and then install Meshery operator. Basically, try to do the Meshery operator's lifecycle management by installing and uninstalling and seeing if anything clashes, and if they are under different release names, probably nothing will, and then we can merge your PR. Okay, so that sounds good. Let me move on to the next item, which is Subedi. Are you here?
Yeah, I'm.
Would you like to share your screen on this one?
Okay. Okay. So yeah. Sorry, but I could not work that much. There's not a lot of progress from the last time I saw. I showed the components to Doc Matrix. I was working on some other SMP dashboards. So there's not much of updates, but yeah. Currently I'm trying to figure out, but I will be able to complete it within this weekend. I'm trying my best, and I figured out how to sort these stable and edge versions on separate in a like systematic order so that we can show it in the table itself.
By the way, is there a Figma design or some kind of a design for it that we have finalized yet?
No, not yet. Like I asked the design on the website call, and there was like nobody said anything. So I thought I will go with this, and after I make the PR, then we'll ask for more suggestions or things we can change it.
Have you added the workflows in other adapters
No, no,
other than Linkerd?
no, no.
So I think an action item can be, because the UI part would be remaining then. So the thing that you have done for Linkerd, you can just go ahead and replicate that for other adapters, so that the only thing that here remains is like to discuss how to design and stuff, so that when finally we are about to do that, we don't have a backlog of going back and making sure that the adapters are actually dynamically sending these in the Meshy repo.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. Is there an open ClickUp task for it?
No, there's no ClickUp task for it. There's an issue for it, but not ClickUp task.
Okay. While you're at it, you can create one and assign it to yourself, so that and they'll create those things as subtasks about for each adapter. And as you go on completing those, just check mark them, each of them.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And about
Okay,
the
so
compatibility matrix, I guess.
yeah.
So like,
So if you scroll down, the one thing that I've pinpointed was if you click on each of these, any of these tests, like yeah, so still the only one version is showing up here, which is 1.23.9. What's up with that? Like if tests are being run for each of these versions, why are we only showing, is it hard coded, or where is it coming from, this version?
I think this one is that okay. Like, are we running each test on 3 different versions?
Yeah, we were actually running not just 3, I guess 4 or 5 versions, 4, I guess 4 Kubernetes versions.
Because in the YAML file, the Kubernetes version just comes this only one. It does not come as an array. So whatever version it gets tested with, it just comes with this one
Can
single.
you show the output that you used, that YAML that you're talking about, so that shouldn't be the case. So that's an issue on the workflow side. So if someone can take that up, we okay.
See this one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. This actually should be, it should have had more rows than this. This markdown. Yeah, so each row would have a single Kate's version. Yeah, so this is not something. Can you go back to the can you go back to Meshery Istio or any adapter? Just go to Meshery Istio and go to the E2E workflow.
GitHub workflows.
Yeah, this one. And just hover all the way down. Not all the way down any of these, because we have 3 different jobs running the updation. So let's look at this one. So if you scroll down here, where we actually create the markdown, yeah, here on the from line number 331, I guess. No, from line number 333. Yeah, so this is the markdown that is being created. So what we should do is we should have a for loop that should, did someone say anything?
No.
Okay, we should actually have a for loop here. So for to give other people a bit of context who are new here, these are end-to-end tests that we run. So if Subedh, you can show the above 2 jobs. So we have if you can scroll all the way up, just all the way up. Yeah, so the first 3 jobs I'll explain, and you'll get what the YAML that you're seeing here is about. So this first one actually sets some environments, which is I won't go into details about how it sets it, but yeah, it sets the environments for the test to take place. If you go to the next job, the second job, yeah, this job actually performs the tests and after performing the test, it pushes the results of that test in a JSON file. And if you move onto the third, like here we take that JSON file, if you move down, named as data.json, because this JSON is
Mhm.
uploaded as an artifact inside of the GitHub action. So you can transfer data between jobs using these artifacts, or even data between the workflows themselves. So this data.json is then being used to create to generate this markdown, which is being then pushed to the Meshery docs, which is what Subedi showed there. So here the ask is that since previously we were running only one K8s version, so on line number 109, as you can see, like we were only running for one K8s version, but now we are running for three different K8s version. So the markdown that we generate here should actually be a table. So we should in
Mhm.
bash we should loop over, basically have a for loop over all the
The
K8s
echo.
version.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then for each of those versions, we should push this thing uh, as a markdown. So I don't think there is a open issue for this, Subedi, right?
No.
Okay, so you can create one right now, and if this is kind of a beginner friendly issue, if any beginner will have a problem, I'll create a one PR in Meshery Istio, or someone else will do it, and then the other folks can have kind of a learning experience. So I can go ahead and do it. So is there anyone on the call who wants to volunteer for other adapters as well? Because we have like for 6-7 adapters, so any change that happens in one adapter has to be propagated across all of these. So this is kind of a good first issue if you want to get started with GitHub actions, understand how the workflow is working, and all these things. So do I have any volunteers here? If you're shy, you can put your name on chat, or Subedi would just okay, so Pankaj has raised his hand. Okay, did you say something, Pankaj?
No, just that I would like to volunteer for one of the issues that
Oh,
you create.
okay. So sounds good. So okay, so Vedi, can you create one issue in the Meshery ST adapter explaining this thing that the markdown has to be updated for all K8s version, and then Pankaj, you can take this issue and then you can copy this issue in the other adapters as well, and I'll ping you once a PR is made for this ST adapter so that you can propagate the changes. Kind of a good first issue thing. Sounds good.
Yes, sounds good.
Okay.
I have a question. So on that on those jobs, so they're kind of reusing some workflows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would it make sense to move the logic as to how to parse the data JSON in one of those tasks? Or I mean, I think that in that case, moving that over to some shared workflow, it would make faster just to replicate those changes across, because now it lives in the shared job.
So out of these three jobs that we have, only the second job is follows the principle that you just said, that we have it centralized somewhere and then we call it from other places. But the first and the third one don't. The first one doesn't because it's kind of it can actually. I
Can
think the
it
first,
differ? Like, can the implementation be different depending on
yeah,
the output of each?
the first for the first one, yes. So if you look at the first one, if you go over onto the get list, so here because depending upon which like adapter we are at, so here the repository would be istio, and then internal logic would be different, that we are putting these release names, and also it would be
Uh-huh.
a lot of things would be variabilized for not much end result. So for that reason,
Uh-huh.
we just replicated this, because the first one did make sense. On the third one, I'm not quite sure if we should
Uh-huh.
is
Uh-huh.
is
Okay. I
yeah.
get your point. I mean, I thought that only the echo itself, like how it's done, and maybe not all, because but I'm not even
Okay.
sure if it's possible, like, to have some
Okay,
kind of
so
step
yeah,
inside this.
yeah, so if we want to run that as a step, we'll have to have that as a GitHub action. So right now, The way we do it is that we have a callable workflow. Callable workflow is just another YAML, and a GitHub action is like you write in JavaScript, and also that would be a separate action for very minimal work. So yeah, putting that into a step would be, yeah,
Uh-huh.
either we'll have to have an entire job being run as a callable workflow which calls onto the central thing and which takes the data and manipulates it. Can you scroll down a little? And here, like, few things also differ, like the directories that we cd into, which is like here it is Meshery Stio, and some other like Meshery component is,
So could they be parameterized as part of that step? Or do you
yeah,
think it's, I understand it's kind of like a major effort because it's looks simple just to do the changes here and copy paste around the repos, right? But it's
yeah,
just
actually here
yeah.
there are like so many.
I'll let you like make the call. Maybe it's not something that would make sense now, but just be easier
Okay.
to propagate those changes if
Yeah,
there is a way, of course.
yeah, actually I think in these cases, because this is not like, I think here propagating
Frequent.
would be, yeah, it can be frequent. So propagating here seems better because of so many. First we'll have to like sit down and decide what things are needed to be variabilized for, what things we are sure that that wouldn't change and all, the structure of markdown wouldn't change and all. So for now, I guess if someone like goes through this, if anyone working on this issue goes through this and thinks that, okay, I have found this very general pattern that it follows, and these are exact 5 variables and not 4 and not 6, these exact 5, and if you can come up with that, like giving array and everything, then
Like
it's
just
fine.
parameterize the sorry to interrupt, the bash itself, like
Yeah,
this script, like try to find that common pattern, and then once the certain variables are there, that could be like a precursor to some kind of shared what is it, like a shared step or workflow,
yeah, yeah, a workflow, callable workflow. So that would,
like another callable workflow that receives those parameters.
yeah, yeah. But the only challenge there is that to we had a different version of the core workflow. We had to change it because the one of the variables changed, and since that, and that's a like, kind of a breaking change. But there it made sense
Yeah.
because that core workflow actually ran the tests and everything. So it made sense there. Here, if we were to like make that frequent changes in the core workflow just for the sake of updating markdowns and all, that doesn't quite make sense. So I would make the call that I think we should, for now, I think we should propagate these changes individually for now.
Okay, sure. Yep. But it's good to throw that out, right? And we could
Yeah.
move towards that this like how can you call it, like have this single responsibility, right? Just try to abstract that logic away and make these kind of changes across easier later. Sounds good.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Pankaj, for taking that up, and thank you, Aditya. Thank you, Mario, for your good suggestions. And before we move any forward, I think I skipped the good part. I skipped the introduction part, and I see 2 new faces here. I think Asutosh, is this your first time on the call? Okay, if you're saying something, we can't hear you.
Yeah, it was my first time in the call. Yeah.
Yeah, so would you like to introduce yourself? We get to know you so that we can get to know you.
Yeah, sure. It's Asutosh Panda from Odisha, and I'm a DevOps engineer from TCS, all based in Hyderabad. And I joined Meshery like few days ago, and by far I have contributed to the docs, and I was looking into contribute to the Meshery CTL, but as this call was in calendar, so I joined it to listen and what was going on, and yeah, it was quite complex for me to understand everything. Still, I got a little bit thing, and nothing much, and still trying to figure out to do a first contribution in coding, because by far I have done only documentation contributions. Nice to meet you, everyone.
Yeah. Nice to meet you, Asta. Actually, yeah, that's yeah. So So in Meshery CTL, have you created any issues or PRs by now? Any?
No, I haven't created. I just picked up one stale PR, stale issue, which was created in July, and I was going through the documentation which was suggested by Lee in the issue. What was the contributed resources he has provided? So those are very long documentations. Like he has provided 5 to 6 documentation. I was going through them and attended new contributed meetings. So by far, I have attended 2, 3 calls, so didn't get much time to focus on the code yet today.
Okay. So what's your experience with Golang?
Golang is totally new, but I have created small projects playing through the tutorials like generator, and have used Cora and in very small in my GitHub profile.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, we have a lot of.
Yeah.
So you can start from. I would suggest that keep your eyes on adapters as well. What happens is that a lot of times a propagative change is needed. So if you don't know the Meshery's architecture, just a quick note that we have our central Meshery server, which is the Meshery/Meshery repository that you see here. There you have your Meshery UI, Meshery CTL, Meshery server, and the adapters are there to extend Meshery's capability to provide you with each service mesh's particular functionality. So to provide all the Istio functionality, we have mesh Istio adapter for Linkerd functionality, Linkerd adapter, and so on and so forth. So we are like 5, 6 adapters. And a lot of times what happens is that there's a kind of a good first issue thing, which because a change is made in one adapter, and if you like want to learn about the project while in like learning the language and learning what's going on and all, so that that kind of is a good place to keep your eye on, because if all you have to do is it's kind of a copy paste with very unique changes. So when you make those changes, you kind of also understand, okay, so this is how the adapters code is working and all. So yeah, keep your eyes on the adapters, keep your eyes on like all those if whenever an issue is created, try to pick one up, especially if you want to learn Golang and if it is Golang related. Sometimes those issues are very urgent and we cannot afford for people to sit with those and learn with those. And sometimes then it might be the case that you would ask yourself to be assigned, and we don't even assign you, and we just go with the PR, because sometimes we have to make releases and things are pretty fast paced here. So other times where like we can afford that change to happen in like a week or so, then you can take those issues. And just remember that whenever you take an issue, this kind of a responsibility that comes with it. So it is always appreciated. I cannot stress enough. It's always people here are always appreciated for delivering on time. So like if you take up an issue anytime and you say that I'll be done with a week before another stale bot comes, and if we see a PR and a commits going on there, even if it takes like you a week or two to go through the review process and get that PR merged in, it's always appreciated to not sit with that thing, because what happens is that we can't even assign that to other people and that issue stays there. So that was kind of a quick guide for newcomers who want to contribute. And it's not Golang or Meshery adapter specific. The later part was kind of a generic advice, so it can be implemented by you anyway. So yeah, good to have you here, and I hope we see a bunch of PRs from you. So do you also like, are you like a full stack person, or only Golang mostly?
No, by profession in job, I'm a DevOps engineer, but I like a kind of a hobby. I look into backend sometimes. Like I knew a little bit of Spring Boot, and now I'm thinking to completely shift to Golang because it is highly flexible. Like it's quite easy to understand
Mhm.
Golang rather than Spring Boot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Good
Just
So
call.
yeah,
I
Do you
had
know how
some.
to? Oh, sorry to go ahead.
no, go ahead, Mario.
I just wanted to ask Asutosh. Hopefully, I'm spelling his name correctly. If he knows how to look for the good first issues in any of the adapter repos, for example. If not, maybe we could provide him some links to useful links for that.
Uh, Yeah, like and I know how to find it, like, but if you can suggest me some like most easiest one, then that would be I'll be grateful. And that would be
Do you
nice.
know, have you, sure, do you know where our contributing guides are, the Meshery docs?
Yeah, I have been going through all of them one by one. By It's like 2 or 3 days I have joined the community, and I have
Mhm.
made 2 3 contributions in the dog by far. So I haven't
Ah,
gone
okay.
through because each of these things contain their own set of guides, right? So CTL has its own
Mhm.
guide, adapter has its own guide. So I'm going through each one by one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, there are some. So you have contributed to the Meshery adapter contributing guide docs. Is that correct?
No, as a whole, Meshery/Messery, the whole one.
Ah,
Yeah, because that
okay.
one was very scattered. It took me a lot of time to understand how it is going on because these individual
Mhm.
ones are properly documented, but the main one, which contains everything, that was very much scattered. So I
Uh-huh.
just did few changes over there. So next time, if
Mhm.
any newcomers comes in, right, so he won't be facing any issues.
Well, thank you,
Actually, if you,
Ashutosh, for that.
I just looked at the Meshery contributing to Meshery adapters. It's just like one sentence, and then
Yeah, yeah,
it links you
exactly.
to the extensibility, like the docs about
Yeah,
like
yeah,
guiding principles, and that's pretty much
yeah.
it, right? So you think that's a bit skim?
Yeah.
Like, do you consider that
Yeah, because I
scarce?
have already contributed to GitLab. So GitLab documentation is very robust. So they have very huge documentation, and it's like even contributing something to a dog, right? It goes to a lawyer, goes to a technical writer, then goes to a lawyer. So then
Uh,
if he approves, then they put it in the documentation. So everything is there. But here it was very confusing, and that's why I did some changes. Then I stopped it because my goal is to get better at coding, not at docs. So I am now shifting to Golang. So that's why I joined the call and listening and trying to understand what is going on.
mhm.
Well, thanks for complaining. And all complainers are appreciated here, because the more you complain, the more we can get better. So, anyways, as you move forward, make sure that you convert your criticism into GitHub issues, so that people can convert that criticism back to, something meaningful. Yeah, so Ashutosh, thank you for your introduction. I guess the other new guy I saw here is Vaibhav. I guess Vaibhav, you're new to the call. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, hey guys, I am Vaibhav and I'm from Uttarakhand, India. But right now I'm in Bangalore, working as a software engineer in this startup called R1 Systems, which basically works on drones and stuff. Drones for survey, basically. Right. So currently I'm currently working on a platform which basically like visualizes the drone images and stuff. Right. So yeah, that's that. So I'm like a full stack developer and we work with React, Django, PostGIS, and yeah, stuff like that.
Okay. Have you joined any dev call or any call before this one, or is this like your complete first call?
Yeah, so I think I joined one before, but at that time I was in my office, so I couldn't uh like completely go with it because I had to like cut halfway through. And I saw the other one which was for beginners, I guess, the beginner contributors, and but I couldn't join that too because of some work related issues. But yeah, like but yeah, like you can say like this one is pretty much consistent. So yeah.
Are you aware that in Meshery UI we have an ongoing refactoring going on? So we're like moving from a bunch of refactoring is going on. I think, I mean, because I don't work on the UI side, so Abhishek or some other UI maintainers would be able to speak better, but they're not here. So on their behalf, I would just say that we are adhering to some design principles and all, and kind of a sweeping change is going on in some other branch. And it's like in every dev call we ask for volunteers and all. So in the Meshery UI channel, you can ask yourself to be a volunteer on that React thing. If you want to be, that can be a good place to start.
Yeah, sure. I'll do that.
Yeah. And then someone would assign you something, and make sure you attend the next dev call, and that in that dev call, like the first item is always telling people that, hey, we have this ongoing thing going on, and there is an Excel sheet, there's a spreadsheet basically where we are mapping this feature being implemented by this guy, this feature being implemented by this guy. You can get your name up in front of one of the features and go with it.
By the way, up till now, I have just contributed to the docs, I guess. But yeah, I'm still trying to understand this project as a whole, and yeah, having some fun on the way, I guess.
Yeah, same. Anyways, so moving on to the next item, which is Hamza's item. So Hamza, would you like to share your screen?
Sure.
Wait. I think I think I offended someone. So Pankaj is also new to this call, and I forgot to call him out on this one because I actually seen him, I guess, on other calls, and I forgot whether that was a CI call or some other call. So yeah, Pankaj, hello, and would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi Ashish. That was the dev call 2 weeks ago. Hey everyone, I am Pankaj Kushlani from a final year student of BTech from Mumbai, India. And I joined the community 1 month back and worked on few issues, one with Meshery CTL, two with CI, and yet another one with the CI. And I'm currently working on one of the issues for the UI refactor that's going on.
Yeah, so Pankaj is also a great guy to talk to, Vaibhav, because on the refactoring thing is going on. You can, you can have you can have a basically the two people on who are working on the same thing. Yeah. Thank you, Pankaj, for introducing yourself, and sorry because I forgot your name because of the confusion. Anyways, now Hamza, you can share your screen now.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can all see my screen.
Yep.
Yeah, so for the new guys, then let me just give you a brief intro about these end-to-end tests. So whenever someone makes a pull request, so a pull request gets merged to any of these adapter repositories, there's a certain set of tests that are run. They are meant to test whether you didn't break anything, and also that all expected resources have come up in the cluster. So right now we are having an initiative of adding sample apps to all the adapters. And I think it still has the sample apps, and we are battling. I'm battling with console. I saw someone take up Linkerd. So yeah, you can take up any of the. So these sample apps use these end-to-end tests. They use a core workflow that's in Meshery. It's in the Meshery/Meshery repo. You can check it out. It's a GitHub Actions workflow, and they all reference it. Like the generic stuff, the boilerplate stuff is all there, and then the actions that are specific to that particular adapter are inside this workflow. So I'm trying to add the sample app that ships with console, with the console service mesh. It's called HashiCorp. So yeah, I managed to add this installed, yeah, deployed sample app. These are all like YAMLs. They are two robots to explain them to you in a 1-hour call, which is left with 20 minutes. But yeah, you can go through them. And the problem I'm having right now is
Yeah, I saw
the
your
work.
yeah, I saw your problem.
Yeah.
If you go to one of the failing tests and look at the pattern apply, the log of the pattern apply command.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, you here, like you can see the invalid workload of type config map.k8s. So just so that everyone has a little bit of context, the YAML file that you're seeing on your screen is a pattern file. We call it pattern file for now. And this is like at the core of everything that Meshery does. So this is our representation of your infrastructure. So anything that you deploy, it can be on Kubernetes, it can be a Kubernetes related thing, it can be a service mesh related thing, it can be a XYZ related thing, it can be anything. This is that's what makes Meshery completely extensible. Anything that has its functionalities registered with Meshery server can manage it. Adapters are one of those things, and tomorrow if someone else comes up, we can create an adapter for anyone in like 15 minutes. That's how, like, template is always there. So in this pattern file, you can see two services: a console installation and a HashiCorp one. And the type here, you see a use macro that is importing another pattern file. So you can have pattern files inside of pattern files inside of, you can compose things up like that, which makes it pretty reusable. So like you can have one pattern file defined in where you like deploy your config maps, pods, deployments, all your infrastructure related stuff. And let's say that you want to reuse it a bunch of times, and you just need to change few parameters like the control plane namespace, the namespace, some console version. So it's like that becomes your function definition, and here is where you actually use that, instantiate that function and give it those parameters. So existing pattern files can be reused by that. So here we have one pattern file, and each of those services inside of, so each pattern file has n number of services, and here two services. Each of these services are in turn importing another pattern file, and those pattern files will have like a bunch of services. And when Hamza scrolled down on those YAMLs, that those were the other, basically the things that he was importing. So here the pattern apply log, can you hover up, go back. So the log says that invalid workload of type config map.k8s. It doesn't recognize the config map from Kubernetes, and which is indicative of the fact that it doesn't understand Kubernetes, which it should. So what happens is that whenever your Meshery server, the first time a request reaches the user through Meshery server, it goes through a middleware, which is Kubernetes something middleware, which actually has the job, or because we don't have a separate. If one thing you have noticed is that we have service mesh adapters, but we don't have a Kubernetes adapter, because Kubernetes is managed kind of inside of Meshery itself. So whenever that middleware is called, we actually go on behalf of Kubernetes and register the capabilities to support things like config maps. And here this log basically means that, well, you never supported that capability with me, which basically means that the request never went through that middleware, which basically means that this is the first request. And for this, Hamza, I think you had made some changes in the core workflow so that the first request will fail like this, because by that time the Kubernetes capabilities wouldn't be registered. But the first request will actually trigger that registration process, and after 30 seconds we try again, and then this would succeed. So why is this happening only once and not like twice or thrice? If we have gotten your PR merged, it should, like, on the first thing line it should say like pattern apply log this, that invalid, and then on the second line after 30 seconds when it runs again, it should recognize it and the thing should be applied. For like, this is only an issue for Kubernetes, not for adapters, because whenever adapters start, they register their capabilities with Meshery server. For Kubernetes, we have to do it manually, and there kind of a thought process is going on right now that should we do it inside of the middleware? Should we take that thing outside? And when should, in the life cycle of the whole thing, when should we do it? So thanks, Jared, for joining in. Thanks for attending the call. Anyway, so as I was saying that, Hamza, if you are right about if your PR got merged in, why are we only seeing this one log? Did your PR got merged in, the PR which was actually making sure that this step happens multiple times if it fails once?
Yeah, it was mad.
Can you show it in the? Yeah, I'm also pretty sure that it was merged. Although is there some kind of a loophole in the logic? I haven't seen workflows inside of workflows. If you so these so the first so for the first 20 minutes or so, the core workflows that we are talking about, these are the workflows which are being called inside of each of the adapters for the end-to-end tests. So yeah, if you go on to that step, Here it is. So what you do is that you check if it contains this string invalid workload of type, and if it doesn't, then you break. So can you go back on the log, and there does it say exact invalid workload of type colon? Can you go back on that pattern apply log that you were just saying? Because right now it is breaking. It should like break from the loop. Invalid workload of type. So it does contain this string. So yeah, so it shouldn't actually. It should actually go into the loop and like try again. So did you, before merging that PR, did you test it on like locally to see that if actually it was performing the retries?
Yeah, when I used it, these tests were working. The test for the service mesh install without the pattern file, they were not working. But when I used it, they all started passing. Yeah, like how you say here.
Is this a caching issue? I'm doubting. I mean, it shouldn't be a caching issue, right? I mean, you're referencing the correct workflow. Uh, for debugging purposes, you could have put some extra log in there so that we for sure knew that this is your like the updated version of the workflow. Because I don't think there should be a caching issue, because we have made changes in the core workflow in the past and that never broke anything like this. Anyways, here all the other tests are passing, right, except for sample app.
Yeah.
Okay, then I think we can go ahead and merge it. One more issue. Okay, this is again a very user-friendly issue if someone wants to pick this up. I'll share my screen, Hamza, for this one.
Sure.
Here I think we can go ahead and merge your PR, and then we can, on the sample app thing, we can discuss. We discuss in the sense that we can try to debug what the problem is there. Okay,
I will
so
I will split it and take out the sample app and only merge the control plane.
yeah. One more thing that you were facing that you did know actually, one of the error messages, and even if everything is fine, a few things would fail. Like in your pattern file, you had .console. Like we have a convention that inside of service you define the type of your workload, and like in that case you saw config map .kate. So it's the name of that resource dot and then the name of the thing. The thing in this case is Kubernetes. So Kates. If it's a service mesh related thing, or if, I shouldn't say service mesh, but I should say if that thing is going to be handled by an adapter, not by like directly by Kubernetes, like then you should have the name of that adapter. So, or not the name of the adapter, I should say the name of the service mesh that adapter manages. So, so we have a convention that if you want to deploy virtual service through a pattern file, the type you define is virtual service dot istio. And for like linkerd, you define something like authorization policy dot linkerd and so on and so forth. But in and this is kind of an inconsistency that like it completely skipped. I completely skipped over it. So this is kind of one line Golang change and kind of a control F control R. So a find and replace change as well. And if someone wants to take this up, this is so inside of templates, Om workload. This you'll see these version directories, and these version directories are the components, the capabilities that I just talked about for each of the version of the console service mesh. So let's just open one of these. Here you can see that inside of the inside of definition file, the name here is console mesh, right? If I, by contrast, if I show you an adapter which is where it is correct, it would be the istio adapter, because it's always the most updated adapter. It gets kind of biased here anyway. So in workloads, if you see, like if I open any of the version, and if I open, so first thing that you would notice off the bat is the naming convention. So here the naming convention is for even for the files is we have a schema file and a definition file, and it's .meshery .layer 5 .io something something something, but it is always prefixed with resource name dot this istio. So this thing that you see before .meshery is exactly metadata, the thing that you see in metadata.name. And here, if I go inside like a definition file, you would see that it is actually inside of metadata.name. It is actually authorization policy.istio, but in console mesh, we just have, okay, so let me open some other, like this console mesh was console mesh resource itself. So here you don't need to attach dot console, because when you attach dot something, it means that adapter will take that, and this adapter will interpret that thing as the capability exposed by the service mesh itself. So dot console means I will remove the console and take that thing, whatever you give me. Like in this case, it can be proxy defaults, and that resource I would, for me, that resource would be keep something service mesh specific. Here, the only resource here that is not service mesh specific is this console mesh thing. And this is, if you don't have the dot something, by default it always means that if there is no dot, the suffix on on here, it by default means that it is handled, the logic to handle that thing is inside of Meshery. So here, because it's dot istio, it means that authorization policy, yeah, we can handle it, but we don't actually create authorization policy. Istio service mesh does. So we'll just transfer that request to Istio control plane. And here, as you can see inside of console, if I open a definition file for, let's say, ingress gateway, here it says ingress gateway, just ingress gateway. And by the specification that we have, it would mean that we handle ingress gateway, but we actually pass it to console mesh. So the ask here is to, well, first of all, okay, Aditya has also dropped. If he's already here, thank you, Aditya, for joining. And Mario has also dropped. So thank you, Mario, for joining. Anyway, so here, as I was saying, the ask here is that to change wherever you see, like inside of metadata.name, change the resource name to add dot capital C ONSUL dot console to all of these files, and subsequently change the naming convention as well. So export, it would be exported services dot console dot meshery. And what that would do is that would just change all the static data, but more data is added here, not by us manually. All these files are not entered by us manually. This is run by inside of a workflow, and that workflow, all it does is it starts off the adapter, and the adapter at the startup, it actually checks if a latest version of an of a service mesh is available, and if yes, it will generate those files and push it there. So to change the to change for future files that would be generated, you would come inside of config.go, inside the build directory, and here you would see, okay, so we give name, we give mesh version, but if I'll come inside the config.go for Meshery Istio, you would see one more field, which would be the type. So since the type is not given, this type is exactly like here it is capital ISTIO. This is what is being suffixed. So you need to add this constant. In this case, it would be that constant would be CONSUL, and that should be passed by type here. That would make sure that for future components, for future definitions and schemas, everything goes correct. And for the ones we have already generated, we have to manually make that change. And that manual change I just explained is in your VS code. It's kind of a, control F and control R. Just find all the instances where the like in all these version directories, find wherever the authorization policy. Okay, so this is the Istio adapter. Sorry, inside of your console adapter, actually, look at the metadata.name, and wherever in the, and we have a definition file for each of these things. You would find the definition and a schema file. You don't need to concern what's inside of a schema file. That schema is, I won't go there, because that will take another 30 minutes to explain what a schema is. So that schema, that's the capability, in short words. But yeah, the definition file contains all the metadata regarding what that thing actually is. So inside of definition file, so leave this one for console mesh. For console mesh, don't add that dot console, because we handle the console mesh, and that console mesh is not like, it's not if you go to console service mesh and you'll ask them what is a console mesh, do you have a CRD for console mesh, they'll say that no, because they don't have, because we have this thing as a resource. And this console mesh, what all it does is that in Meshery, if you're using mesh map or a design configurator, and if you design configurator is a big mumbo jumbo for writing a pattern file from UI. So if you're writing a pattern file, and if you have a type of a service named console mesh, it will install the console adapter, because after console adapter is installed, then you can make use of all these basically resources that the console mesh provides. So the ask is the first one: add that constant component, add that as a type so that the dynamic thing is fixed, and the static things, for all the static things that we have already generated, change the file names, just except for console mesh. For exported services, ingress gateway, and basically everything that you see except for console mesh, change the suffix to exported service dot console for all the files, and only go inside the files for definition.json, and change the metadata dot name to add a, like here, mesh dot conusl, C capital. So kind of a straightforward thing. And while doing that, you might get to know what the schemas and definitions are, what's happening. So kind of, in my head, it's kind of a good first issue. This thing is consistent in all other adapters, and the console is remaining. Someone wants to take this up? If I was successfully able to explain the ask and what's going on here, because this is kind of a quickie. Quickie would be to mean that, because okay, so Hamza has raised his hand, so I guess Hamza also. So yeah, so Hamza, because this will go hand in hand with your changes. So once that is fixed, your resources that you have added with .conusl, they will be fixed as well. And I think those, yeah, those will be fixed. So will you create an issue in the console, or you know what, don't create an issue, there are already a bunch of them. Here I would give you a straight pass to just go with the pull request. So like, if you can create a pull request within 24 hours, because the ask is kind of a low hanging fruit, just create a PR, get it merged, and then like, step A, we will merge your current PR. Step B, create this PR. Step 3, let's fix the apps, right?
So what will happen when a new version of console is released? Like, will these files, shall we
Okay.
have to change them manually, or they will be generated like the ones of Istio with the prefix of the
Yeah, they would
component?
generate it with the prefix if when we make a new console release. And the previous one, those exist without prefix. I don't think we care about those. We can, we have a bunch of public designs, but we don't have a lot of console public designs. And if anything breaks, it's easily replaceable. We can just, we can create new components with that. So I'm kind of I will take the risk to have that dot console, even if that breaks few previous time files.
Okay,
Okay.
sure. I will take it.
I think we have 6 minutes left, and Pankaj, go time. Just go. We have 6 minutes.
Sure. So, okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So there was this issue that had been created, that there were several linked issues that were failing for a long time in the Meshkit repository. So there was a simple Golang CI fix that I had to run in order to solve these issues. And the issue that was that some of so IO/IO util package has been deprecated. So all those methods had to be changed. And there were several CI issues, so formatting issues, all of those that were applied automatically. So I had to manually make a fix of these deprecated methods with the new ones. So I refer to the documentation that several of these methods have been replaced by the OS package, or at places by the IO package itself. And there was this just one place where the method signature had been changed, that it now returns a different object, and that's here. So instead of returning the entry infos slice, so instead of returning directly the entry info, it returns a slice of entry info. So here's the documentation for that as well.
Okay.
So I refer to this documentation that IO read directory has been deprecated, and here now it returns a slice of file infos. So instead of the directory entry, so to accommodate that change, that piece of code was added, and that needed a review from me.
Uh, okay. Can you go back to your PR on that code?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so inside of entry.info, you have those files. Okay. What did Pranav say? Did he approve the PR?
Yes, he approved it and requested a review from you.
Okay, and the other tests, all tests are passing now.
Yes, the lint is passing.
Can you go back to uh, the basically the whole thread where the
Yes.
okay, so everything is green. I'll go ahead and merge it. I just merged it, and I don't think this needs a release because it's kind of an internal thing to mesh it. So we won't make a release. Also, I think this issue, this lint thing, I've also seen in Meshery. So can you check that?
Yeah, I fixed that. I just fixed that. So that was the first CI issue that I dealt with here. Just the closed one. Yeah, this was the one.
Okay. So does this one fixes all the CI checks or?
I think with a recent PR, two more lint issues have been created, have come up. So not in the server, in CTL. So from Harkirat's PR, yeah, the lint is failing, but I think that's a simple fix that he can do by himself.
But this isn't merged, right? So like
Not
on
much either.
master,
Yeah,
yes, on master, everything is passing.
yeah,
All the lint checks are passing.
yes.
Okay, so all we have to do now is be stricter so that you don't have to help us, correct ourselves so that we go back and those lint tests are there for a reason. So we'll be more strict for letting. And sometimes, I'm preaching this, but a lot of times I go ahead and not like delete those extra new lines because and just click on merge.
Yeah.
So God bless you for helping me out here.
Yeah, Lee
Anyways,
pushed me for it.
okay. Okay. So with this piece of thing on, before I end the call, I just would like to ask, like, do you have what's your next thing that you're working on? Do you have something else in hand right now?
Yeah, there's the UI refactor of the deploy modal. So I have to create a component for that. So to make it reusable. So that's my current thing. And right now the good first, I mean the issue that has been assigned right now.
Oh, okay.
For making changes in to make changes in the table that is generated in the markdown. So for that.
Oh, okay. The issue that we just created, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for taking that one up, and thank you everyone for being in the call for so long. And see you next week. This call takes place this is a bi-weekly call, which means not 2 times a week. It means every second week. It's a confusing line. Anyways, so see you folks again next week. Bye.